Welcome to this Prevention Collaborative webinar. The Collaborative is a global organization that aims to strengthen programs to prevent violence against women and their children by connecting research evidence, practice-based knowledge, and programs. And this webinar is part of an ongoing series of webinars that aims to share ideas on research and practice. I'm Kathy Durand. I'm going to be moderating the webinar today. I'm the Director of Strategy and Operations at the Prevention Collaborative. And in that role, I'm honored to work with some of the people that we have presenting today and all kinds of amazing partners around the world. Today, we're going to be speaking about the facilitation of programs to prevent violence against women. The research and practice really demonstrates that successful programs to prevent violence against women and girls are transformative. They enable deep shifts in thinking, beliefs, and behavior as participants critically reflect on their own life experiences and address power and gender inequality. One of the key elements of these program success is the presence of empathetic, and skilled facilitators who are able to promote shifts in perspective and new insights around power and gender. They're doing this by supporting community members to explore their own feelings and ideas and to find their own answers. Throughout the webinar, we'll be discussing some promising practices and selecting, training, and supporting community facilitators for transformative programming to prevent violence against women. And we're fortunate enough to have two case studies, one from Timor-Leste's KOKOSA program and one from Indashyikirwa in Rwanda. So what we're going to do is we're going to invite our three speakers, one who's going to speak generally about promising practices, and then our two speakers who will speak about their experience, and then we'll have a question and answer session. So if you have questions throughout, feel free to write them in the chat box or save them till the end and write them at that point. And we'll be returning to them in the second half of the webinar. We have three speakers today, all of whom have really rich experience from their work with organizations, with facilitators, and with citizens and community members. And so we're looking forward, just want to jump right into that. We have Dominique Maidment, who is a prevention mentor and a senior associate with the Prevention Collaborative. Dominique is based in Thailand and supports the implementation of diverse violence against women prevention programs in both humanitarian and development contexts across the Asia and Pacific region. We have Nivea Saldanha, who's a senior program officer with the Asia Foundation's Nabaland program in Timor-Leste, and she works on social norms change approaches to preventing violence against women. Nivea is a feminist activist and a creative training specialist supporting national partners Pradet and Covida in a co-implementation of a SASA adaptation, KOKOSA. And we have Ritha Nyiratunga, who's a senior associate for capacity development with the Prevention Collaborative. Ritha has experience with adaptation and implementation of violence prevention programs. And she previously worked with RAMREC as in Rwanda as the national coordinator of Indashyikirwa, a GBV prevention program that sought to shift beliefs and social norms that drive IPV among couples and in communities. So welcome, Dominique, Nivea, and Ritha. So we're going to jump right into the presentations. We're going to start with Dominique, who is going to share with us an overview of promising practices around this facilitation aspect that is so important to programs. So Dominique, over to you.
Thanks a lot, Kathy. Hi, everyone. As Kathy mentioned, I'm speaking to you from Chiang Mai, Thailand, and it's great to see so many of you here. Thank you for making the time. As she said, we're going to be talking about facilitating gender transformation and what it takes to find and train and support our community facilitators to help them to do a good job in their work. I am going to just give a quick overview. So I will try to keep it brief, and then we can get into much richer information from both Nivea and Ritha in the case studies. So I'm going to talk to you about why transformational programming is so important for preventing violence against women and girls, and then a little bit about what we need to have in place before we select facilitators, and then some of the practices that we've identified around selection and initial training for facilitators, and then mentoring and ongoing support. So firstly, transformational programming. We know that when we are talking about programming to reduce violence against women and girls or prevent violence against women and girls, we need to go far beyond giving knowledge or raising awareness. We even need to go beyond changing attitudes. And so I thought that we would start with this quote about transformational learning. So transformational learning is a process by which individuals change their frame of reference, their convictions, and their lifestyle through making meaning from their own experiences. Transformative learning can come about through a life transition or a disorienting dilemma, or through discussions led by a skilled facilitator. And I think all of us, if we reflect on our own life experience, we can all pinpoint those life transitions and those disorienting dilemmas that changed our own worldview and that changed our thinking, our feelings, and our behavior going forward. I think fewer of us have personal experience of this transformation that came through discussions led by a skilled facilitator. And that is really what we want to support community facilitators to do. It's quite a deep process, and it requires that facilitators have a number of skills. Firstly, to be able to support community members to explore their own feelings and ideas and find their own answers. But at the same time, we need facilitators who are able to catalyze shifts in perspective and new insights into power and gender. And of course, I'm sure everyone is aware, if facilitators are going to be effective, they need to avoid blaming and shaming and lecturing. So we are really looking for quite a special group of people, and then we need to be able to give them some quite specialized support so that they are able to facilitate this level of transformational learning. I wanted to briefly mention some things that we need before we select facilitators. Even the best facilitators in the world are not going to be able to do their best work if they are working in a vacuum. Okay, the best facilitators are able to do their work because they have a clear and well-designed program behind them with a strong theory of change. And that theory of change just means we have an idea of what we are doing and why we are doing it. If we are talking about a curriculum-based program, then that program needs to have a good, strong curriculum that addresses gender and power and violence. Non-curriculum-based programs like SASA and KOKOSA, which we'll hear about in a moment, they still need to have clear materials and messaging throughout and careful staging. Now, of course, a well-designed program has to be contextually relevant, right? And of course, if we are taking programs from other places, then they need to be adapted, right? Curricula, materials need to be adapted. However, it's possible to do that adaptation together with facilitators, so it doesn't necessarily have to take place before selecting facilitators. And Ritha will be able to share experience around Indashyikirwa of how they included facilitators in their adaptation process. Sorry, okay. Now, selecting facilitators. Firstly, just a few tips, okay? We know that life being what it is, things will happen. And the number of facilitators you need, A, it might change. And B, if you start with the exact number of facilitators that you need, by the time you've completed your training process, you are likely not going to have enough facilitators. You might decide that someone you selected isn't a good fit. They might decide that they are not a good fit, or just life happens and they're no longer available to be a facilitator. So just start with more facilitators than you think you need. Secondly, we know that we want to be selecting often for knowledge around gender and experience, but also, as much as possible, we want to be selecting people whose beliefs and values are already aligned with the program, and people who have skills and behavior that is aligned with the program. It's also really important that we're considering factors like age and gender and closeness to the community. In a lot of places, if you have very young facilitators trying to work with much older people, that doesn't work. It's really difficult for them to bridge the gap. So trying facilitators who match with the characteristics of the community that they're going to be working in can be really helpful for success. And finally, just to say that reputation is important. If we want community members to trust our facilitators, we need to make sure that that they are trusted already, that they are known and liked, or at least that there are no issues with our facilitator in the community. Now, in terms of process for selecting facilitators, there are a number of different processes which can work and which have worked. I think the key points are that the process needs to be fair and it needs to be transparent. We want both the prospective facilitators, our applicants, to understand the process, and we want the community to understand the process as well. It's great if we can have a competitive process so that we are actually selecting and not just trying to find as many people as possible. Now, in order to get to our beliefs and values and skills in our selection process, it's good to consider group workshops, role plays, and trying to find a way that is fair that involves the community in the selection process. On the right of the slide, you can see some skills and qualities that we want to look for. This is absolutely not a comprehensive list, but these are some of the skills and qualities that can sometimes be overlooked, so I wanted to mention them here. Facilitators with empathy and emotional maturity are going to do better. Facilitators who are already able to practice some deep listening and who are able to make people feel safe and enable everyone in a group to participate are going to be more successful. And I think maybe the most important quality is this commitment to self-reflection, because the work of gender transformation is never done, right? We all need to commit every day, commit and recommit to that self-reflection. So it's an important thing to see in our facilitators. Now, when we have our facilitators, we know that we are going to provide some initial training, right? And I think it's important to take a moment and think about all of the different things that new facilitators need training for. We need them to reflect on their own values and biases and understanding of gender. We also need them to learn the content of the curriculum, and we need them to learn and to practice facilitation skills. So we are asking them to do quite a lot of things. There are different ways to approach this initial training. But this two-step process that you can see on the slide has been really helpful for a number of programs. If you have a two-round process, then in the first round, the facilitators just go through the curriculum as if they are participants. They really focus on their own values and beliefs, and it promotes their own change from within. Also, this first round of experiencing the curriculum as a participant can be really helpful to help facilitators empathize with the community when they're facilitating themselves. If they have had this experience themselves, they have a greater understanding of the community's experience. And then in the second round of training, we can take a more training of trainers approach. We can deepen understanding of the curriculum. We can include practice sessions so that facilitators start to actually facilitate with one another. They can brainstorm together how to handle challenging situations. And also, this is a time to make sure that facilitators understand referral pathways and how to get support for any members of the community who disclose experiences of violence through the curriculum process. I also mentioned here that facilitators can be giving valuable feedback on the curriculum if you have an adaptation or a pre-test process. And finally, once we've finished that initial training, and I should have mentioned that in the latest round of What Works, I think they're identifying that initial training needs to take at least 3 weeks, a minimum of 3 weeks, and maybe more. Even after that initial training, we need to continue to think about mentoring and ongoing support for our community facilitators. And I just have a few tips and a few things to consider for that process. The first is team facilitation. Even after going through a curriculum twice, many people are not going to feel very comfortable facilitating alone. So facilitating in pairs, if you have a mixed group, then maybe a mixed gender pair for the team for facilitation can be helpful. But whatever works depending on your curriculum can really help new facilitators feel comfortable. Refresher trainings, both on the curriculum and as an opportunity to raise additional issues that you may not have realized were going to be important for your community at the start of the process, building in time to train on new topics as well as refreshing old topics can be important. We should always have a process for structured observation. So by that, I mean that the facilitator will facilitate for a group, and then a team leader will observe and give feedback. And the most important pieces of that feedback are encouraging self-reflection, and then providing encouragement and support to the facilitator so they know they have somewhere to go. And then finally, providing ideas or things that the facilitator can improve. And then finally, regular team meetings are really important. So regular team meetings where all of the community facilitators can come together. It forms a really great place for them to share their successes, their challenges, brainstorm common problems and possible solutions, and also can provide a space to really support community facilitators and for them to support each other. We know that when we are doing work around prevention of violence against women and girls, a lot of issues come up, disclosures of violence come up, and there is a risk of secondary trauma or vicarious trauma. And so team meetings can be a way for facilitators to share experiences with each other and support one another. Okay, that's it from me. If you would like more information about facilitation skills for transformative programming, the Prevention Collaborative does have a practice brief on training and mentoring, and you can find that on our website. And you can also see my contact details there if you want to get in touch to ask any questions after the webinar. All right, thank you.
Great, thank you, Dominique, and really appreciate the sort of tips and all the thinking that goes into this. I think two things that really stick out for me is how critical having the right facilitators and how their transformative process is so key to the transformation of communities, and also that really thinking about how this is an investment in your program. So even if you have the best program in the world, if you don't spend the time investing in your facilitators, it's going to be hard for that program to be implemented well. So I'm going to turn now to Nivea Saldanha, who is with the Asia Foundation's Nebulan program in Timor-Leste. And Nivea is going to be sharing her experience with the KOKOSA program, which is a SASA adaptation that's taking place in Timor-Leste. Her slides are just going to come up here. And again, please either jot your questions down so you don't forget them, or put them in the chat box. We will gather the ones from the chat box and ask those following the three presentations. Great. So Nivea, over to you.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Again, my name is Nivea. I'm speaking from Timor-Leste. I work for the Nabilam program. The Nabilam program is implemented by the Asia Foundation in Timor-Leste, and is an 8-year program with 24 million commitment from the Australian supporting partners and communities in both violence prevention and response. At the moment, Nabilang is adapting and implementing SASA in the capital of Dili, and also one in the rural area in Same, Manufahi. As I'm sure that you are all aware, SASA is a community-led mobilization approach for preventing violence against women, which developed by raising voices. And the Timorese adaptation is called KOKOSA, as you can see on the screen. And it sits under our social norm change pillar, among other prevention activities and also intervention. Our SAME intervention is currently at the end of awareness phase, and the Dili intervention is in the start phase. And today I would like to share with you some of our experience in identifying our community activists in Dili, together with our co-implementing partners, Kodiva and also Pradet. Next slide, please. Okay. So the community activists, I'm going to be talking about who are the KOKOSA community activists, what they do, why, and how do they do it. So the community local activists are the community members who lead KOKOSA local activism strategy. And those people are women and men living in Santa Cruz, Caicoli, and Mascareñas is the areas that we implement KOKOSA. And those people are the people who are interested in making positive change in their community and preventing violence. What do they actually do? So they use their everyday opportunities to reach their family, their friends, and also the neighbor and other community members, to engage those people in fun, informal and provocative discussions, games, and activities to get people thinking critically about power, relationship, and also violence against women. Due to KOKOSA is a community-led process of change, so it requires community members themselves to connect with each other on a personal level, to not only make positive change within themselves, but also influence change among their friends, family, and also the neighbors. The KOKOSA activists are involved because they have connected with the ideas and really want to see change in their life and in their community. So the community activists use KOKOSA activities such as poster discussions. We have card games, quick chat guides, flip chart to engage their fellow community members. And those community activists also are given ongoing support in their activism from the Nabilan team and also from our co-implementing partners, Pradet and Kudiva. So these supports such as mentoring and training. Next slide, please. As you can see on the screen, how are community activists selected? So there are few strategies that we use in order to select the right people to be working with us in implementing KOKOSA in the community. So the relationship building, as you can see on the screen, there are few things. I think I don't have to mention all of those things on the screen. So the relationship building in the communities started early with local leader consultation, and we also engage with the youth groups and the religious group in the community. And luckily for our partners Kodiva, all of the KOKOSA team members, they all are living in Santa Cruz. So it made developing and strengthening relationship very easy with those community leaders, youth groups, and the religious leader that live in the area. Pradet is also used to community outreach and understood well the importance of getting to know the community and ensuring strong relationship with leaders and other influential people in the community. And we also use flyers. We do community meetings and invitation to get the word out that we were looking for community activists to get involved in KOKOSA. And after we done that, we then held a series of short workshops to help us identify the right people. Next slide, please. Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, Dominique, can you move to the next slide?
So I'm looking at the identifying activists workshop. Is there an issue with the sharing?
Oh, we were behind. Go back one to the training activists, I think.
Yes, that one. Yeah.
You want training?
Yeah, identifying activist workshop.
Okay. Great.
So in identifying the activist workshop, what were we looking for? And you can see on the screen, we are looking for a diverse group of people like community leaders, religious group, cultural leaders, and youth, and those who were interested in preventing violence against women, who were respected, friendly, and positive. And people who were committed to nonviolence in their relationship is very, very important, and also interested in creating positive change in their family and also in the community. We also wanted to make sure that we had a range of age and experiences. And obviously, we wanted people who were ready to give their time freely, who are not already working, and could attend meetings, trainings, and of course, conduct KOKOSA activities regularly. We followed an adapted version of SASA mini workshop for selecting activists that involve some facilitated games and also group discussions. And these help us to get to know the participants, listen to their views, and also see how they related to other in-group discussion and activities. And we really wanted people who were good listeners, but also those who are not too shy to speak out for what they believe in. And during the workshop, we had one person facilitating and the other team members were observing and taking notes. So we could keep track of who was and how they might fit into KOKOSA. We also had a form for participants to fill out with more information to help us select the right people, such as how much time they could give per week, how active they were in the community, and if they were part of any existing group that we could engage with, and also why they wanted to be part of KOKOSA. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry, not yet. I'm sorry, I still have few things to say. Also, after running all the planned mini workshop that I mentioned, we also realized that we don't have a lot of we lack of the older people that participate in the mini workshop, because in Timor-Leste it's very common for the older people to leave the village activities in the community for the young people to do, because they like the idea of the youth having something to keep them busy. But given the hierarchical social structure of Timor-Leste society, where it is uncommon for elders to listen to young people. So we knew we had to work out a way to get the older people interested, and realize that KOKOSA was for everyone. And while we hadn't planned for more workshop, we had to do an additional call out for elders, and luckily convince the local leaders that if we only had young activists, they would find it very hard later on to run activities or influence the elders in the community. So they help us invite older people in the community, and we run some extra workshops specifically on the elder people. And afterwards, the team then follow up with the suitable participants, like young and old people, with phone calls, and they also visit them directly, talk more about getting involved in KOKOSA. And this was very important, as the visit and personal discussion from the foundation for a strong relationship between the KOKOSA team and members, and also with the community activists. And after all of the activities we then held several meetings to go over notes and discuss with the participants. Our co-implementing partners, Pradet and Kudiva, did the final selection, and those selected were invited to attend KOKOSA setup training. Okay, Mana, we can move to the next slide. Okay, the training activities, you can see a few numbers of the community members that involved in our KOKOSA setup training, and also our KOKOSA start training. So The KOKOSA setup training, it's more on introduction to KOKOSA and its methods for preventing violence against women. And it is also introduced how change can happen and how everyone can be an activist to support that change. And on KOKOSA start training, it's more focusing on new ways, an introduction on the new ways of thinking and self-reflection about power in their own lives and the relationship before those community activists trying to help others. And it is also encourage the local activists to think about gender-related power imbalances in their own life and in their communities. Also help them to think about the consequences of misuse power to their relationship and also their communities. And the START training also provide some basic informations of what violence against, information on the rules and the cause of violence against women, and also the different types of violence itself. And it is also help the community activists how they can think about using power positively to foster change at the individual and also in the community level. Next slide, please. Okay, the key learnings. So the main learnings for us during this period of choosing and training activists, it's really about the importance of relationship building. So from initial scopings in the locations to early discussion with local leaders and community groups, then to the mini workshop and the regular visit and phone calls in between. So all these interaction form the basis for meaningful relationship to develop between the staff and the activists. So when it came to the training, everyone already felt like they knew each other. And the majority of training participants were very open and active. And sadly, in each training we had at least one woman who was currently experiencing violence. However, because of the rapport and our facilitator had, those women were like able to seek help and feel supported. And in two of the trainings, fortunately, we also had a perpetrator of violence that come to our training. But again, because of the team's relationship with, 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 with the participants, and some of the women were able to discreetly discuss the issue with the facilitator so that we were made aware of the situation. And we think that this happened is because of there was a certain level of trust between our team and also our training participants. It is important because if we didn't have such trust, we could have ended up continuing with the perpetrators in the group, which would have undermined all of the work we were trying to do as a team. And we were able to put into action our values and embody the core principle of the work the activists were getting involved with, nonviolence. And also the other learning, which is related to that last point, is about value, KOKOSA values. So our values as a team and the values of the community activists. All our values really have to be aligned. So that is not to say we all have to agree on everything, or that if someone's analysis isn't quite there yet, then we cannot be involved. But it's more on that we all need to be on the same journey. So we are all striving for the same thing, and are motivated to promote balance of power between women and men in their family and in their community, that we are motivated to prevent violence against women. We want to see a solid commitment to non-violence from the activists, and we all have a positive, friendly attitude. We want safe spaces for our team and also for our activists. And it is important as well that activists in their communities are respected and have influence, which means someone that community can trust. And it is also super important that activists are enthusiastic about change and willing to make positive change in their life and also in their community, and also to support each other, not only on the implementation of the KOKOSA in the community, but also as a friend and family. The last one, I think it's my last presentation.
Okay, just 2 minutes, Nivea, please.
Okay. Okay. So next slide. I think I come to an end now.
Yeah. Thanks, Nivea.
Okay. Thank you so much. That's all from me. And if you have any question, then we can discuss more.
Great, and yes, Nivea, there are quite a few questions that are coming up in the chat box, so we'll return to those. Rita, if you put up your slides, Rita Nyiratunga is going to speak about her experience with Indashyikirwa. And as we've heard from Dominique earlier, some of the experiences Rita is going to share around involving your community facilitators in your adaptation program. And it's interesting as well, just the threads between Dominique and Nivea's presentations, again, around the deep engagement with community facilitators in terms of preparing for these programs. So Rita, over to you for the next 15 minutes, and then we'll open up the question period.
Thanks so much, Kathy. Can you hear me?
Yes, thanks, Rita.
Can you all hear me? Kathy, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Rita.
Great. Greetings to all of you, and thanks for joining. And I'm really happy to be able to share our experience with the Indashyikirwa, Agents of Change, as we named it here in Rwanda. So for some of you who may not know Indashyikirwa, I'll quickly go through what it is. Indashyikirwa was and is an intimate partner violence program that was implemented in Rwanda for 4 years, and it was implemented in 7 out of the 30 districts that makes the country. It was funded by DFID and implemented by a consortium of 3 organizations in Rwanda, including Rwanda Men's Resource Center, RUMREC, Rwanda Women's Network, and doing the work on ground, and CARE International as a lead organization to ensure the overall coordination of the program. So this program had different components. It was a really complex and well-built program that had 4 main components. And one of the components was made of a very participatory training with couples. This was built on a very strong couple curriculum, and I know Dominique talked about the interest of having a very strong curriculum. We were lucky to have one. And these trained couples were drawn from CARE's microfinance, village saving and loans associations. And what we did with these couples was taking them through 5 months training at a pace of 1 session a week. That was intense, really. So we had also a community-based activist component that was adapted from SASA. I know Nivea talked a lot, very clearly about the adaptation of SASA. And what we did was taking 25% of those people who went through the couple curriculum to another skill building training to become community activists in order to go and implement activities in their respective communities. We had also an interesting component that was meant for support of survivors of violence. And this was done through the physical women's safe spaces where women could come and get support as needed, either for reference, for psychosocial support, and also to get together and talk and share about their lives and the violence they may have encountered in some circumstances. We also had a training and engagement of opinion leaders. This is a key component. According to how the structure of community is in Rwanda, we knew the role of opinion leaders. And Indashyikirwa considered training these different opinion leaders. They were made of religious leaders, other local authorities, and people who are really influential in the communities. And we did this not only as a way of building a conducive environment for the program to take place, but also as a way, to help them reflect on their own behaviors and rethink specifically on their own use of power. So I know Dominique talked really well about the training and recruitment of facilitators. I'll just go quickly through what we did in terms of getting these facilitators. We were looking for these individuals with gender transformative experience. And we were lucky enough because both RAMREC and Rwanda Women's Network had implemented, and K as well, had implemented programs that were more or less similar to the Indashyikirwa. So we had facilitators who had facilitated like the journeys of transformation. Just to add that for Indashyikirwa, the nature of the curriculum, the couple curriculum and the other modules that were used called for a gender transformative facilitator, meaning they had, we needed people who would be able to understand what it takes to transform norms and be ready to accompany the couple through that journey after being themselves part of this journey. So we didn't consider that most of the staff were already RAMREC or Rwanda Women's Network staff and had gone through similar program. We took them through a rigorous application and interview process. And we wanted actually to ensure, like Dominique said again, to ensure that we had people who could catalyze shift. And people were not there to, like tick boxes and say, I taught, but then people who could rather be facilitators to allow the change to take place in our program beneficiaries. After those who were successful, they were taken through a 10 days training. I like the fact that Dominique mentioned that we needed almost 2 weeks to train people on the curriculum, modules, all the materials that we're going to use. But for us, it was more than that. We wanted to take them through their own journey of change. So we know that we do things better when we believe in what we do, and we wanted our facilitators to go through the same journey of change and to be able to, to be part and parcel of the adaptation process, which was still going on. Because when we trained them, we wanted them to give us feedback, how they were finding the program, how the program was made, understanding it, understanding the model, understanding the content of curriculum and modules, but also tell us if it was really resonating with the needs that were going to help us attain the program objectives. So apart from that, we got a chance to have a good period of pre-testing. I'll talk about pre-testing deeply in the next slide. But we just had a chance, which is quite rare, to have each of the facilitator practice at least facilitating one session during the pre-testing session. because we couldn't just assume that they know what they've been doing or they understand the content from the training, but we wanted them to do practice so we can see and provide the necessary feedback. These are the same facilitators who gave us the feedback that we needed to keep, improving the module, the modules, and the model as a whole. They were taken through interviews by observers. Among the observers, we were lucky to have people from the What Works to Prevent Violence, who were part of the program as evaluators. And the post-interview sessions gave us the important information that we needed to make the program even more stronger. So I'll now talk about what we pre-tested. So our pre-testing, we wanted to know what the materials we put there was going to bring as a product. And we had a way of observing that. So we had all the sessions of the curriculum. Like I said, for the 5 months, we had 21 sessions, but all these sessions were pre-tested. We did not select 1 or 2 sessions to be tested, but all the sessions were pre-tested for us to get accurate information to be able to enrich it. We also pre-tested the modules used for opinion leaders trainings and for women safe facilitators training. So what did our observation focus on? We wanted to ensure that the timings, the things that we were put there as logistics and were enough. We wanted to see how the participants were interacting with the facilitator and the kind of relation that the facilitator was building with the participants, which is really important because we believe that if we don't have a safe space, facilitators and participants cannot, communicate openly. And the way this couple curriculum, if you get a chance to look at it, was made, it required really an openness, a deep reflection of oneself, and be able to share what the feelings and what people lived, in their life, violence or non-violence, but we wanted that kind of collaboration or relation to be really strong. And we wanted also to check if the activities that we put there as organizations and staff were going to resonate to people that we put it there for. So we had a good number of learning from the pre-testing, and I will focus on what we learned in terms of, improving the content of the curriculum and also our staffing. So from the beginning, the very early sessions of the pre-testing, which took a whole month. This again is something that is really, a chance to have a whole month period to pre-test our materials on ground with a group of people, the same group of people, more or less the same, because the context of Rwanda, we are lucky to have a country where we use the same language, and then there's no differences in populations. It's a chance. But then having these people for 30 days, we started the first session and realized that it was really going to be very demanding on one facilitator who was planned to facilitate the curriculum and other modules. It was going to be really difficult for that facilitator to be able to facilitate sessions of 3 to 4 hours a day and facilitate 4 days a week and sustain that same pace for 5 months. So at the beginning, we saw that it was going to be really hard. And again, there were sensitive sessions in the curriculum, which required to have a male facilitator to talk to men and a female facilitator to talk to women. And again, this is what Dominique said. If you get a chance and an opportunity, it's good to have both men and women facilitating different sessions. And also, one thing that was important is when we were facilitating, because of the nature of the content of the curriculum that requires participants to express their strong emotions, there was a strong emotion that arose from the participants. A woman who started crying, and the facilitator was there, couldn't handle that alone. But lucky enough, we were still at the observation level, and we helped out and provided some counseling to that woman. And then this also was a lesson for us that we needed more than one facilitator, without saying that we had some people with very low level of literacy and who needed assistance. So we therefore learned that we needed more than a facilitator. And again, we talked and decided to have a male and female facilitator for all the sessions for 5 months. So we got information that helped us really improve our content of the curriculum. We looked at the language and we adapted accordingly. And we also thought, as we reflected, that there could be some, cultural context that will require some adaptations. But to be maybe clear, in Rwanda, we didn't really do more than adaptation. Language-wise, we did not go beyond translating from English into Kinyarwanda. But in some contexts, you understand that pre-testing would really be helpful, as people can test if the translation was correct and the words in English really were translated into the local language to mean what it means. So we learned a lot from that. And for us, after pre-testing and after training, we knew the facilitators were going to be, okay and do the work on ground. But we did not want to stop there. We wanted to ensure that they feel supported and they feel, they get all the necessary they needed to be able to facilitate and give the program the way we planned it for. So one of the things that we considered when we said we were going to put in place a follow-up and ongoing support to facilitators was, to strengthen that relationship between facilitators and the supervisors. In fact, we needed that safe space between supervisors and supervisee. Why? Because we knew no matter how ready or skilled or prepared a facilitators could be, implementation on ground could show some other challenges. And we wanted to leave that space open so we could know what was going on field and be able to intervene on time and, and support as needed. So this was done through the different field visits and the debrief sessions that we had with them, because both field supervisors and coordinators from all organizations had regular visits. KEA International, RAMREC, and Rwanda Women's Network would go on field. And the primary intention was to show support, but also to observe and give constructive feedback during the debrief sessions. We also had regular meetings every month, like coordination meetings with field staff to openly share their challenges, experiences, and discuss solutions. It is during these monthly coordination meetings where facilitators from field got opportunity to meet with their peers, share the challenges they got on field, and also identify together possible solutions. So it was really a teamwork, and there were good decisions that were made, to ensure that facilitators are really supported. For example, one of the things we did was to identify, the gaps that they had in the skills. We said, yes, we trained them, they know what the content of the materials, but again, they realized that as they had to deal with groups of people who would have, let's say, emotions, who would have extra needs apart from what is catered for in the materials that they had. And we identified that they had some gaps in trainings. For example, we gave them a psychosocial support training, like to give them key elements they can use while on field, but also because we had in our beneficiary, like the program beneficiaries, we had some people with disability, and they ended up, the facilitators told us that sometimes they need to know more how to handle these people, and we provided both trainings. So just to say that, before I conclude, I would say that both pre-testing and the ongoing support that we gave to facilitators really, really contributed to, to make this program a success, because the program was evaluated and it became really a success. So again, I understand that it may not be possible for everyone to do that, but just to back up what Dominique said, if you have a good program, a strong curriculum, but facilitators who are really trained and who feel part and parcel of the program, and you have time to pre-test and keep improving what you have put in place, you're more likely to have a program that is successful. And we were lucky to have flexible donor and a group of, the consortium was strong enough and very experienced, and the collaboration made this possible. So I'll stop here, and there's my email address for any other questions you may have, but also I know we have program brief on the Prevention Collaborative website. You can read more about Indashyikirwa, and I know there's a number of webinars that talked deeply about the Indashyikirwa and how we trained into details, not like, I had to limitate myself on this, but please feel free to contact me, and thank you for listening.
Great, thank you, Rita. And I think you really summed it up well there. You looked at all the different ingredients that we have in these programs that all three of you have spoken of, and thank you to all three of you for sharing your rich experience in this area. We have quite a few questions already, so let's just jump right into those. I'm going to group a few of them together because there are a few that are sort of similar. But let me start with a couple which I think were right off the bat, which are, well, all the questions are fascinating, but in terms of this particular time, Kathleen is asking about if you have any experience or promising practices for remote training of facilitators. This is probably going to be a good question to ask in 2 more months once people have had some more experience, but just, she's curious to see if anyone has that experience already. And also from Annabella, interesting question, that can we also train some best trainers, facilitators to do the coaching and mentoring for their colleagues? And this was related to the ongoing cost of having staff do that. So does anyone want to start out with some answers to those questions?
Sure, I can say about the remote training question. I think we are all at the beginning of figuring out what that means. We can certainly use technology where that's possible, and where everybody is working in the same language. The problem that we are coming up against is that a lot of the partner organizations that I work with are working in very remote areas. So we can't rely on electricity, let alone internet connection. And so we are still figuring out what to do about that. And so I would really like to hear other people's ideas and experiences from participants as well. On the second question about using experienced facilitators or using the best facilitators to train the rest, I would say the answer is kind of yes and no. I think it is possible, and it can be a really useful long-term aim. But one thing that we've seen in some programs is that they try to move too fast to move community facilitators into a team leader position. So I would say it would be really important for a facilitator to have at least one run-through of the curriculum as a participant, and then one round of training as the community facilitator before you start to see whether they are ready to move into a kind of team leader position. If we go too fast, the risk is that we'll just lose quality that way. So I think it's possible, but we need to take a very step-by-step approach and be a little bit cautious, I would say.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Dominique. I'm going to lump a couple questions together here. There's quite a few questions around incentives for the facilitators and the community activists, which are sort of similar. So the question is around, does anyone have anything to share around the incentives and whether or not they were paid? And there are some questions which I'm not sure we can answer here around overall cost of the programs. You might go to the speakers directly over that, but Nivea, Rita, if you have any questions on the, any information on overall cost of programs, that would be great.
So for the activists, whether they are paid or not, so we have the budget just to pay. It's up for $5 stipend. It's for phone credit, but as yet it has not come up from the activists, so we are not providing it. And also I see that how long does the program take. So the intervention lasts for 3 years, and the program cost, I'm not exactly sure, but I can back to you if you are interested. And in SAME also, we have been giving $5 incentive, but in Dili we haven't needed to yet.
Okay, great, thank you, Nivea. Rita, is that similar to the Indashyikirwa experience? Was there anything you wanted to add?
And it's slightly different. Maybe I didn't share deeply about what we did with community activists, because we had a component on community activism. For us, the community activists were not given any incentives, but what we did was to make sure that there is a full coverage per village where the intervention was. So a village is not at more than 5 kilometers work, and we ensured that the community activists were conducting the community activities in their own communities, which did not require any transport or any other fees. And that we encouraged them to keep them like the SASA model. I know there are experts here about SASA, but most of these activities are short in time. So we did not want to give the incentives just for the sake of, ensuring there is sustainability. And the facilitators instead, as they were paid, what I call the facilitators as RAMREC staff, were paid a monthly salary, and they were given like field allowances to go on field, either to supervise the activism activities, to keep them encouraged as the program was still running. So it's slightly different from what Nivea said, but again, I would say that our adaptation of the community activism is slightly different from what Nivea and colleagues did with KOKOSA. Ours was just an inspired community activism, but not the full SASA model. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Rita. And as I said, if the more broader cost of the program, I maybe get in touch with Rita or Nivea directly. They've given you their email addresses. They might be able to put you in touch with someone who could give you more information on that. We have another kind of group of questions around visual materials and manuals for transformative approaches that exist, and also games that have been used for critical thinking. So if anyone could maybe just give a couple of ideas of resources that people could go and look at that might be helpful in these areas. And then another, again, just so we can have two questions answered, another group of questions around how have you been handling the perpetrators in the programs? And is there any referrals for perpetrators? And also relating this to any risks that are present in the community towards the community facilitators, and how those people were protected and through their work.
I can go. Okay, I can go first. And I know Nivea and colleagues went far with adapting materials for SASA KOKOSA. We can share some of those materials we used for the community leaders to train them, and some of the posters that we adapted from SASA to picture the context of Rwanda. But I wanted to touch on the question about handling the perpetrators. Maybe we did not go deep into how Indashyikirwa did. One thing that I would mention to give a picture of how we recruited beneficiaries of the project, we thought of going to identify people that were living with violence, but we finally decided not to, and we selected randomly through the care groups, village saving and loans associations, where we would have one member, one of the couple, of the intimate partners, as a member of VSLA. And by means of lottery, we got a set of participants, and then we asked them to bring their partners. So we did this because we did not want the program to look like it was pointing at perpetrators. And from existing data, we knew there was violence in any way. And we wanted that people who would come to participate in the program would not feel as pointed out as perpetrators. But this did not mean that we didn't have some perpetrators. We had cases of people who were living with violence. And in the end, we said, well, we had more couples living with violence than we expected. And what we did with the couple curriculum, we had an approach of not blaming, but rather helping people to heal and helping people to reflect and decide to go through that change themselves. So we did not point at anyone, but I know later with the facilitators and the participants relationship building, some of the participants came out and told the facilitators that they were living really into violence. That's how we gave them the extra skills on psychosocial support, and they started talking to couples separately. So we did not get like an open session to handle the perpetrators, but we went a smooth way of letting them realize through the sessions and the exercises that they were doing wrong, and then decided to change. I don't know it.
Great, thank you, Rita. That's helpful. Dominique or Nivea, anything you wanted to add, either on the visuals or on how perpetrators are handled, and also any risk that you found to community activists?
So I just would like to add a few more things on the visual or games that we use for critical thinking. So we used we have a few games like snake and also letter floor game. So it's a very good games. It provokes critical thinking because all of the information in the game, it asks all sort of question about power, relationships, and what people think about the consequences of violence and so on. And other questions about how to deal with the perpetrators. I just would like to share, like in my presentation, I already share experience where we had one perpetrator attending the training. So after the training, like during the training, some of the women, they came to us discreetly and talked to us about the person, but during the training, the perpetrators also realized that he wouldn't be able to take part of KOKOSA activities. So he sort of knew that it wasn't for him, even though he shared to us about how much he felt whole and had changed seeing the setup training. So, but we knew that he couldn't continue with us. So we also wanted to let him know that in the future, perhaps, like he could still get involved in KOKOSA activities in the community, but unfortunately, we wouldn't be able to have him join in the cohort of community activists.
Yeah, can I just add to that? This is Dominique. Can I just add to what Nivea said? I think we need to clearly differentiate between perpetrators of violence who are hoping to become activists or facilitators, and perpetrators of violence who participate in our programs. So I think when we are talking about potential activists, as Nivea is, we need to be really clear that that it's not going to work to have perpetrators of violence facilitating our programs. But we would have a very different attitude towards people who have used violence in their lives, who want to be a participant in a program. Yeah, I don't think that it is always appropriate to exclude perpetrators from participation. And there was another question about safety of activists or of facilitators, and I think it's a tricky question because contexts are so different to each other. But one important thing to think about is having your community activists brainstorm potential safety risks and come up with a plan together, like come up with a safety plan for community activists together that address the specific risks that you're facing in your context.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Thank you, Dominique. Thank you for making that distinction. I think there's a couple questions as well around, your experiences around, did any of this learning translate into a country policy, strategy, training curriculum, guidelines, etc.? And similarly, can you talk about scale and sustainability of these programs?
Mhm. Kathy, I'm off mute. Can I
Yep,
start?
go ahead, Rita.
Yeah, great. So in terms of the program transferring into policy or informing policy, this program was something I didn't mention was really backed up by the Ministry of Gender and Family Promotion in Rwanda, which was really looking up to having a program that would help to end violence, gender-based violence and other sorts of violence. So they took this as a success, and with another set of funding that they got, they've scaled it up, and they wanted to make sure that, like I said, it was only implemented in 7 out of the 30 districts, and the objective was to implement it, to enroll it in some other places of the country. So this for us was a proof that they really wanted to support that. And to talk about policy, it was presented in various forums where at country level, with all the thematic, the groups that were working as part of the ministry to prevent violence, the program was always presented as a good model. I don't have, in Rwanda, like Dominique said, it depends on the context. We don't have it yet, like in the policies, but it helped in reinforcing some of the policies that were in place. I'll give an example. In Rwanda, there is a medical scheme for people who are not, who don't have means to go to seek medical help. So some of the policy was that a victim of a violence, a gender-based violence, will have medical care for free. So that was a policy that was supposed to be, implemented and enforced in all the district hospital, in all the healthcare services. But then with our implementation, we realized that in some of the places, victims of violence who were injured or physically injured were not given free services, but rather were charged extra, to say that, according to the local leaders, was a way of discouraging those types of acts, like acts of violence. So we did through the different meetings that we had with local authorities and advocacy up to the ministerial level, we managed to get another order, like to make sure that the victims of violence are treated according to the law. So I just wanted to share that example, but hoping that there are more that will still discover that we got from the programs.
Great. Dominique and Nivea, anything on scale and sustainability?
Hi, this is Dominique. I think just to say that scaling up it's a great question, and it's something that the whole field is grappling with, how we can do that. So I don't have any easy answers about what it takes to scale up.
Yeah. Stay tuned. Maybe we'll do a future webinar on us all together brainstorming around that. And certainly there are the CUSP materials, which is the Community for Scaling Practice, I believe is their name, the Community for Scaling Practice, which has some of their materials available publicly around experiences of scaling programs. Maybe one more question. Actually, before we'll leave, there's a question on Indashyikirwa, but Rita, I will let you answer that in an email or something. I did we're just close to the top of the hour, and so to our three speakers, maybe you could just share one or two words, two parting words with a few parting words with the group who has joined us today. So, Rita, you want to start?
Yeah, why not? So just one word in relation to what I presented. I've been on different programs that, the violence prevention programs. And I'll just share that with Indashyikirwa, I got an additional success, as I could say, because it was a very thought about program, but also it had all the dedication from the donors to the implementing facilitators on ground. And we were all looking up to finding something that would really, really say violence prevention has worked this time around, because we had violence prevention programs that would be successful in a limited time, but once the program phases out, we wouldn't be able to sustain. So we were looking for something sustainable, and I hope with the Indashyikirwa we got it. And I really thank the commitment of the donors. I mean, it takes more than an implementing partner to make a program successful.
Yeah,
Thanks.
so collaboration and shared commitment.
Yeah.
That's great. Nivea, some parting words?
I just would like to say that with KOKOSA, it's a very SASA is a very great tools for preventing violence against women, and I have never experienced. I used to work with some NGOs before, but I haven't found like a very specific concept as SASA. So I just started working with Nabilan program a few months ago at the very start of KOKOSA program in Dili. So I learned so many things and get to know more about the people, and it's very, because SASA is really related to the the real life of people. So it's not only, and I can see a lot of change in me as well. So I think that this is a really great program, and I hope that the presentation that we share today can also benefit for can be a great information from those people that are attending this webinar tonight.
Great, thank you, Nivea. Sounds like it's been transformative all around. Dominique?
Thanks, Kathy. I just very briefly want to say, I noticed that there was a question. Someone was saying that 3 weeks of training altogether would be very hard for facilitators. And I just want to say, yes, absolutely. It would be almost impossible. And so 3 weeks of training doesn't have to come all together. It can come a few days at a time or 1 week at a time with breaks. And that's useful for facilitators in the rest of their lives for practical reasons, but it's also useful for them to be able to really think through and integrate their learning before they come back for more. And then I just wanted to say thank you to everyone for participating, and that I hope that we have made a strong case for really investing and spending the time to support the people who are really facilitating the programs, because we know that it's crucial to the success of programs going forward. So thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Dominique. And I'm not going to add anything on the content. I think that's a really great sum up, and we're at the top of the hour. So thank you again to everyone for joining us. We will make this recording available in within a couple of weeks, so you will be able to see it and to have access to the presentations through the recording. We will share that with this group, and it will also go up on our community web page. So if you go to preventioncollaborative.org and you click on community, you'll be able to find the webinars there. And in addition to this webinar, we have a number of others, probably 9 or 10 at this point, that we've been doing. Again, all trying to connect research and practice. So again, thank you for joining us. We'll be doing another webinar in a couple months, so stay tuned for that, and stay safe. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.